Minecraft has cemented itself as a legendary title and as a game that is simply impossible to ignore. Seriously, this game is so ingrained with some people that it could be viewed as the millennial and zoomer version of growing up playing with Legos or watching a Disney film. It really is that commonplace. In a lot of ways, Minecraft has really touched a lot of people with its focus on creativity, openness to modifications, and the sheer availability across a number of platforms. So with all that in mind, it may come as a bit of a shock to you guys that I've never really played Minecraft before. I sampled here and there, as I'll explain in a couple minutes, but for the most part, I went into this video pretty blind. Minecraft released during my years in high school, which really was the perfect opportunity to experience the 1.0 launch, but for one reason or another, I let this game pass me by. My only experience was occasionally seeing others play the game, and what I saw really didn't impress me too much. I was personally really into playing a lot of first-person shooters at the time, like Call of Duty and Battlefield, so a much slower-paced game like this really didn't appeal to me too much. There were some other things that kind of prevented me from getting to this title too. I wasn't a big fan of the idea of managing the inventory on a controller. Most of my friends who played Minecraft played on Xbox while I had a PS3, and I didn't really even understand what the point of the game actually was. As the years went on, the sentiment of Minecraft almost kind of turned into how people talk about Fortnite or Among Us today. The more hardcore real gamer crowd really shat on this game as they saw it either as a meme game or something for little kids and casuals. Easy to understand as this game was fucking everywhere. There was merchandise, spin-offs, hell, even Microsoft themselves bought the IP, which I think really soured a lot of people of the more hardcore gaming community at the time. I would say it was around 2017 to 2018 or so that a wave of nostalgia hit for a lot of people that I personally knew, and Minecraft started to find a renewed interest with them. This is where I initially tried to jump in with the series, having just recently built my first PC. I booted up a Java world with a group of people, played for about an hour, got completely confused because everyone progressed at a rate much faster than I did, some of the other players were doing things to grief me because I was a new player and didn't understand the mechanics, and I turned it off to never return. A couple years would go by, and around the Caves and Cliffs updates near the end of 2021, I decided to give the game another go with a different group of friends. More or less the same sort of thing happened, only this time I also died and couldn't regain my stuff, which frustrated me, and I put the game down again. To me, I just couldn't get behind getting into a game where I needed to have everyone pause what they were doing every 5 minutes to answer one of my questions, and I didn't like seeing everyone already fully decked out in diamond gear before I even had my first iron ingot. It just felt like I was going to be missing out on the intended first-time experience, so I decided to pass on playing that world. It was at that point that I kind of decided this game was simply not for me. I didn't feel like keeping the wiki open on a second monitor to answer my questions, I didn't feel like playing catch-up with my friends, and I didn't feel like this is something that was worth my time. So one of the big reasons I make these videos is so I can share my experience with you guys. Whether it's for a game series that I've played a lot of, like Halo or Kingdom Hearts, or something I'm experiencing for the first time, like Dead Space or Deus Ex, I'm really here to take you guys along with me on my journey through gaming. So when coming up with video ideas, I kind of thought to myself, what better video topic could there really be than the game that I've probably tried to get into the most, but for one reason or another, it just didn't work out for me. So in today's video, you're going to see some real first-hand experience with Minecraft. I went in, tried a number of different things to make sure I had a very firm opinion on this title. I played the Java version both solo and with a group. I played the Bedrock version for Windows as well. I tried some custom worlds that were available on the Bedrock storefront. I purchased some official DLC to give it a go. I did damn near everything I could really experience with this game. And let me tell you, I've got a lot to say about this one. But before we get into the game proper, we have to go over that development and release. And hey, since this is the biggest indie game that is no longer an indie game, you just know there has to be a good story behind this one. So let me ask you, do you take the lapis and exit this video to keep your soul free of Notch's cringe? Or do you take the redstone to find out how deep this rabbit hole goes? Well, let's get into it. Minecraft's whole being can mainly be attributed to one man, Marcus Pearson, otherwise known as Notch. Now, Notch was working for King at the time, a game company I hope to really never talk about with you guys unless you really want me to do a Candy Crush series of videos. Like and subscribe if you do, and like and subscribe on 2 separate accounts if you don't. Notch would occasionally have some side projects that he would be working on while he was also slaving away at King. One of those projects was a really interesting cross between Dwarf Fortress and Roller Coaster Tycoon of all things, codenamed Ruby Dung. It just gets worse and worse, I swear. Notch eventually left King in March of 2009 to join J-Album, where he would still work on his side projects. Well, a month after Notch quit working for King, a little game by the name of Infinite Miner was released, a game that featured a first-person perspective, pixely block-based graphics, and a fundamental block building system for the game's environments. So Notch pulled a Thomas Edison, stole the idea, and made millions. Well, that might be a bit extreme, but to say he wasn't heavily influenced by this title would just simply be laughably untrue. Notch essentially took Infinite Miner, added some light RPG elements, and the basis for Minecraft was born. In May of 2009, Notch shared Minecraft as a developmental release for the TIG source forums, as well as a few test videos on YouTube. Given feedback from both of these sources, Notch would continue working on and updating Minecraft as a side project all the way up until the game's official alpha release. This is where Notch quit his job to focus on Minecraft full-time, as the revenue that was being generated as a result of selling copies of the alpha build was enough to sustain development. With this newfound manpower behind development, many new things were added, including new blocks to interact with, new mobs to encounter, changes to mechanics like flowing water, and even a new survival mode to be added. It was clear that Notch needed some extra help with this project, however. This brings us to the foundation of Mojang, thanks to the funds received by the people who had already purchased Minecraft, and the newfound partnership with Jacob Porser, for who Notch used to work with at King, and the CEO of J-Album, Carl Mena. Many other new employees were brought into Mojang after the beta release in late 2010, with a full game release looming over the horizon. Minecraft was released in mid-November of 2011 for PC, and then over the next 12 years on everything else that you could possibly imagine. I'm not naming them all. Here's a list. And yeah, no cliffhanger on this one, guys. Everyone in the world knows what this game is, and it's one of the biggest success stories of all time. Minecraft scored mostly in the high 80s and low 90s across all platforms, with the occasional outlier primarily coming from the mobile and handheld ports and the Wii U version for some reason. PC Gamer gave the PC release of Minecraft a 96 and was quoted as saying, "Intuitively interesting and contagiously fun, with an unparalleled scope for creativity and memorable experiences." While Game Trailers was a little bit more conservative with their score on the Xbox 360 port, giving it an 80 and saying, "Minecraft for the Xbox 360 does an admirable job of reproducing the essence of its forebear, and on the strength of local co-op, it also manages to improve upon it in a small but essential way." When looking at the sales, I just want to give you guys this one number. 300 million. That is how many copies of Minecraft has sold. To put that in perspective, that's a little over 88% of the population of the United States. It is over double the population for both Russia and Mexico. If you assume that each one of these copies sold for $30, that would be just over 0.5% of Jeff Bezos' net worth. Well, okay. Actually, that last fun fact really wasn't that fun, but you get my point. That's a shitload of copies sold. The accolades for Minecraft, given all the praise and commercial success, are actually a little bit more on the sparse side. Minecraft did win awards for a number of publications for Best Indie Game of 2011, was nominated for Best PC Game, and even managed to pick up a couple overall Game of the Year wins as well. Not too much of a surprise, since 2011 was the year that brought us Portal 2, Skyrim, Dark Souls, Arkham City, Terraria. Yeah, that was just an all-time year for gaming. Actually, most of the praise that Minecraft received really came in the following years, with publications such as Time and US Gamer ranking it really highly in their all-time lists. The most interesting accolades has to come with Minecraft's relationship with the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards of all things, with Minecraft either being nominated or winning Best Video Game every single year since 2014, minus 2016, 2017, and 2019. The years that Minecraft didn't win were given to either Among Us or Just Dance. Just Dance won 8 Game of the Year awards during the 2010s. And you people talk shit about the Grammys getting it wrong. Culturally, man, what is there to be said? How many YouTubers have made their career of going through walkthroughs, challenges, speedruns, or even song parodies of Minecraft? YouTube has had over 1 trillion Minecraft videos on the platform alone, which I hope doesn't hurt this video's chances of doing well, but I guess we'll see. You see the influence everywhere, from the amount of merchandise in retail stores to being the topic of TV show episodes like South Park, to the vast amount of references in other games. Hell, Steve from Minecraft is even in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as a playable character. That's how you know you're a gaming icon. That's not even getting into all the educational purposes that Minecraft's being used for, that outside of the Assassin's Creed series, I have seldom seen a game do that didn't come off as completely lame. What about the impact that Minecraft has made on the modding scene in gaming? Seriously, think about how many developers now work in the industry purely because they got their start creating skins in Minecraft. Shit, there is even an entire yearly event dedicated to Minecraft, Minecon. This shit is seriously everywhere, man. Now, normally this is where I would jump into the game to give you my thoughts and opinions on the mechanics, the story, the graphics, all of that stuff. But Minecraft isn't exactly in the same place that it was when it launched back in 2011, and some people would actually say it's a completely different type of game now, and there are quite a few reasons for that. First and foremost, after Minecraft released, Notch took a step back from the lead development role and instead handed over the reins to Jens Bernstein, otherwise known as Jeb. During this time, they also hired on many new developers who worked on the popular Bucket API to help improve Minecraft server modifications. Now, if this change in the design team wasn't enough, in September of 2014, Mojang and the Minecraft IP were actually acquired by Microsoft for the sum of $2.5 billion. Funnily enough, this all stemmed from a tweet that Notch posted when he was reacting to criticism from him enforcing the terms inside of Minecraft's EULA. This tweet encouraged corporations to purchase Notch's shares, and Microsoft were the first to pick up the phone. The modern age of brokering deals, folks. What a time to be alive. This essentially turned Notch into a billionaire overnight who rode off into the sunset to never do anything stupid or controversial again. Over the years, further development of Minecraft would honestly be quite more complicated than your standard game. Being that Minecraft released on everything under the sun over the past 3 console generations, you could imagine there were some hurdles that needed to be overcome, to varying degrees of success depending on who you ask. The original PC version was labeled as the Java edition, while nearly every other platform, legacy or modern, has essentially been rolled into what is called the Bedrock edition, which was based on the groundwork from the old Pocket edition of the game. I'll go into a little bit more detail about this later, but just know that Mojang had to essentially do double the amount of development for new features that they wanted to implement in order to make it available for all versions of Minecraft. And there are plenty of other things that I could really talk about when it comes to Minecraft's development, like their expansion into China, Nvidia's push for ray tracing support, VR being added into the game, that was huge, but I think you guys got my point that essentially, this game is fucking massive, and there's a ton of different ways to experience it. But what do I think? After all the experience that I've just shared with you guys, and after the numerous amount of times that I've picked up and dropped this game, has my opinion really changed that much? Well, the answer to that question is actually quite surprising. Not in the sense of whether I enjoyed my time with Minecraft or not, but with how fast I felt this change come about and how often I kept having these moments where I realized just how much Minecraft really has going for it. A lot of the things that I either didn't like or had concerns about were either not that big of a deal or were very easy to avoid or prevent. And a lot of the things I always admired about Minecraft stood out as even stronger. Instead of my previous frustrating experiences, I found a game that has a ton of mechanical complexity, a world open to as much creativity as I put into it, and something that is even better shared with other people. I can say that after playing through Minecraft, this has gone from a game that I really couldn't be bothered to care about to an absolutely phenomenal game that I foresee myself playing for many years to come. So, without further ado, this is my review of Minecraft. One thing that I always appreciated and gave massive points in Minecraft's favor was the presentation. I would dare say that Minecraft has one of, if not the best art direction in any video game. This isn't a game that's goal is to push the boundaries of graphical fidelity or have obscure design to make people turn their heads, but instead creates a very simple framework that everything in the world of Minecraft can fit into. Very rarely do you find an art style that is both unmistakable yet so simple as you do in Minecraft. The beauty of Minecraft comes from seeing these procedurally generated landscapes be either built in a way that looks like a blocky version of a real-world location, or something out of a much more fantastical setting. The color palette this game chooses reflects perfectly in the exact vibe of whatever biome the player may be traveling in. And the mobs, man, the mobs have so much personality to them, even if most of them have some of the most limited animations you've ever seen in your life. You, of course, have your standard farm animals and undead, but some of the original mobs, such as the Creeper and Enderman, have gone on to become some of the most recognizable enemies in all of gaming. Though the visuals aren't the only reason for that, as audio also plays a huge role into the immersion of Minecraft. Actually, what's really interesting is the different ways that audio can actually clue the player into a number of things. For example, on your first night, when you only have a pile of sticks and a dirt hut, hearing the groans of zombies or the shambles of skeletons may indicate areas to avoid. However, after 10 or so hours, when you're deep into the mines and you're looking for a way out to the surface, those mob sounds could lead you to more open areas that may have a path towards the exit. Another example comes with the environment. Hearing running water in the overworld may show that there's a stream nearby that may make horse travel a bit of a problem. However, when underground, it may be your fast ticket out of there, assuming that the water leads to the surface. The audio in this game really starts as a way of warning the player for potential obstacles, but over time can actually be used to the player's benefit in order to solve their current problem. Well, except for the Endermen, because fighting them literally always sends a chill down my spine from the noises they make alone. The other thing that sends chills down my spine though, Minecraft's OST. One of the best soundtracks in gaming, full stop. C418 was the mastermind behind the first 2 volumes of the Minecraft OST, and I honestly cannot recommend you give these albums a listen to in full. There are some tracks within the albums that help transition some pieces together that really make it into a completely different listening experience. How it shows up in the game, though, is also purely melancholic and full of bliss. Oftentimes, you'll be doing something so mundane like decorating your house or gathering resources, but this soundtrack just makes these moments feel important and distinct from what you usually do. It's the type of music that actually has you reflect on the situation and feel something about what's going on without being distracting. As the game has gone on, Mojang has commissioned other artists such as Lena Rain to compose new tracks to accompany the Nether and Cave and Cliffs update. Rain, having already composed the excellent soundtrack from Celeste, is an amazing choice in my opinion for making something that both fits in with what C418 has produced, but also has her own style. More recently, Aaron Sheriff has also thrown his hat into the ring to add to the Minecraft OST, and while I'm more unfamiliar with his other work, I think he also has some really strong contributions to the overall product. Getting into the more technical side of things real quick, you've probably heard me mention a few times now that there are essentially 2 main versions of the game, Java and Bedrock. Now, for a lot of new players, I understand this might be a little confusing about which version to try to play. Let me tell you right now that the decision is frankly quite easy because console and mobile players essentially only have Bedrock, while PC players get both versions when they purchase the game. Hey, it always wasn't like that, so count your blessings. The other thing that I think a lot of people get caught up with and confused about, and I may catch some shit with this, is which version of the game to play based off of the features. And let me tell you right now, Bedrock and Java, there aren't a crazy amount of big changes. Yes, there are a lot of small changes between the 2 versions that do have more obvious and frequent gameplay applications, far too many to list in fact, but I think it's safe to say that you have mostly a similar experience regardless of what version you play. Most of these changes are small, so small in fact that you probably never encounter all of them, but the large differences may be your big deciding factor. The Bedrock version does have some nice things, such as the ability to have crossplay across platforms, longer block placing and attack reach, and the ease of adding plugins from the Minecraft storefront if that's your thing. This is the version I probably recommend to newcomers or people who want to play with somebody else on a different system. While the Java edition has a slightly more complex combat system, a redstone system that properly works, and a near unlimited amount of mods. This is the version I recommend for all PC players or anyone who wants to experiment with the massive world of modding. For this video, I primarily played on the Java version, as the minor things did slightly improve my gameplay experience over what Bedrock had to offer. But I have to say, I wouldn't necessarily dock the game points if only one version was available over the other. Well, I guess I do give the Java version extra points for allowing me to easily put in an Ice Spice skin. What's that noise? Oh no, the Minecraft parodies have found us! Thought I was killing you? That creeper a munch, cook up some raw beef and eat it for lunch. Bitchin' and diamonds, I get what I want like. You thought I was killing you? That creeper a munch, cook up some raw beef and eat it for lunch. Bitchin' and diamonds, I get what I want like. When it comes to the game's performance, Minecraft is heavily customizable, which I mean, it makes sense since this shit is able to run on our phones, so obviously it's gotta be somewhat properly optimized. Which thankfully it is. I was able to run this game with having the max amount of chunks rendered at any given time on fancy graphics, and while I did have some pretty big frame drops when heading into areas I've never explored before, everything else for the most part was pretty consistently smooth. Presentation and performance-wise, we really don't have much to worry about with Minecraft. In fact, it's honestly pretty stellar. So now I want to talk about what exactly you do in Minecraft, because for the longest time, I was completely in the dark about what your actual objective really was. So there isn't a story, or at least not one in the traditional sense, and it's not really a competitive game either, so what exactly is my incentive to play? Well, first and foremost, Minecraft has a variety of modes for you to really experiment in. To keep things at least slightly more cohesive, I'll mainly cover the majority of the gameplay in survival mode, because that is the mode that I played the most of, but I'll touch on creative mode as well as some of the other modes later on. So taking a dive right into the first thing before you even make one step with your character, let's talk about the world generation. So the entire world that you play in Minecraft is essentially endless and is procedurally generated based off a seed that is created for you or is manually inputted in by the player. This means no 2 Minecraft experiences will be exactly alike and gives players plenty of reasons to try out new worlds and explore different seeds. Maybe your friend has a seed that has a layout that you really enjoy and they want to share it with you. Maybe you found a really fun one online and you want to challenge yourself on. Or hell, maybe you say fuck it and throw caution to the wind and play whatever the game gives you. You have basically an unlimited amount of options with this regard. So you spawn in with nothing but the clothes on your back to any number of locations. You might be asking yourself, what now? Well, that's the thing. The answer is do whatever you want. Sure, Minecraft has a set of things called advancements, which do a decent job of guiding the player to the next objective, which wasn't always in there, and it's a huge blessing for objective-based players like myself, but you also don't need to follow them. You could really just walk off in a direction and see what there is to see, or maybe stay put and build up a homestead. The world is your oyster, and your play experience is exactly what you make of it. Getting into some of the mechanics real quick, the game is built around this block building system. All solids and liquids are composed of 3D cubes called blocks. These blocks are literally everything from trees to water to minerals to lava to even the dirt you find laying on the ground. Now these blocks can be picked up through the act called mining. Mining either destroys the block entirely or collects it and puts it in your inventory, for which you can place in another spot. As long as there was another block attached to that block, you can essentially build as much as you want. The sky's the limit in this case, both literally and figuratively, and you can make whatever structure you want as long as you have the resources. You could build your classic dirt hut, or you could be like some of my friends who build these grandiose structures that I couldn't even think about where to begin with, or you could be like me, a simple guy who just builds a pizza hut and calls it a day. Okay, so we know how the mine part works. Now where does the craft come into play? Well, outside of being able to place those blocks, when you go into your inventory, the option to fashion your resources together to make something else is also there. This is called the crafting system, and while it starts out as rather simple, it gets increasingly more in-depth over time. Whenever you mine a new resource, you actually get a recipe for a number of things that you can create with that resource. For example, by punching a tree and collecting wood, I learned how to make a crafting table and then some wooden tools. You craft the item by placing the resource in this grid in a way that is somewhat reflective of what the item looks like, or you're lazy like me and just click the recipe. It didn't always used to be this way, with players having to memorize recipes before, but now the game thankfully has streamlined this process. There are a ton, and I mean a ton of things you can craft in this game. Tools to help you mine stuff easier, weapons and armor to defend yourself, different blocks for building materials, cosmetic items, and that's just barely scratching the surface. How these two interact with one another is where Minecraft's core gameplay loop comes into play. You find resources by mining in order to craft equipment in order to mine more resources to help you generally survive. If you find a resource like an ore you aren't able to mine, it might mean that you need to go craft a certain piece of equipment in order to make that possible. What this does is that it gets players very familiar with all the different blocks present in Minecraft, what the best ways are to handle each, and when a new one comes along, it piques players' curiosity to see what that new block might be and how they can use it. Some blocks may be a resource for the next level of gear progression, while others may be just for decorative purposes, or maybe they're just something super abundant and basically worthless. Who knows? You have to go find out. Going back to talk about the world of Minecraft real quick, there are a number of potential biomes that may spawn. If you ever cracked open your 7th grade geography book, you'd basically have a pretty similar list of biomes scattered throughout your seed, though there are some more fantastical ones such as the Mushroom Islands, Floating Islands, and even some alternate dimensions in there too. Each of these biomes have their own abundance of resources, mobs, and structures that you may not find in others, and they are all visually distinct from one another. How Minecraft blends these biomes together in a believable way is also remarkable. Minecraft is some of the strongest procedural world generation out of any video game. Sure, sometimes you see weird stuff like a village being split in half by a mountain, or maybe a pirate ship that has been scattered all over the place on the coast, but those are more of the exception than the rule. Coming across these massively expansive caves, colorful oceans, or thick jungles is such a cool and immersive experience that can honestly be a bit breathtaking, and it happened to me countless times in the few worlds that I generated. Now the biomes for the most part don't act that differently from one another. There are some small things to consider, sure, however, it doesn't really impact the gameplay nearly as much as you might think. Some snowy biomes may have bodies of water that are frozen, making them easier to navigate. Maybe the desert biomes have a lot of sand, meaning you need to be careful where you dig so you don't cave yourself in. Or maybe you're in a heavily wooded area so you have more resources available, but now enemies have more shade so they can move around during the daytime. That's basically it though. It's not like you need to worry about keeping warm in the winter biomes to not freeze, or making sure you have access to water in the desert biomes. Which, you know, to some might be a good thing since the survival aspect of the game can often be a big deciding factor of your enjoyment. Personally, as someone coming from playing other survival games such as Valheim or Subnautica, I wouldn't have minded seeing at least an option for these as a little bit more depth to the survival system when it comes to these different biomes. There are some biomes that really shine above others, like exploring the ocean ruins and having your equipment usage be slowed until you kill the temple guardians, or the ancient cities which require you to make as little noise as possible lest you be attacked by a warden, but I think some of these ideas could have been further realized. Come to think of it, there really isn't much of an incentive to go to these more elusive biomes outside of some specific blocks or cosmetic items. Which I mean, I guess it makes sense since it means you aren't required to go find these in order to progress, but it also doesn't entice me to necessarily go to those certain areas. Oh well, there's probably a mod that expands on these things. Outside of yourself and other players, there are a number of different NPC characters called mobs that can spawn in across the many biomes. These are really divided into 3 categories: passive, neutral, and hostile. Passive mobs primarily make up most of the animal life you come across, or the villagers since they won't attack you. Neutral mobs are the ones that either fight back or have a way of being provoked, such as the Endermen, Iron Golems, or Wolves. Finally, there are the hostile mobs, which make up the standard enemies like zombies, skeletons, spiders, and creepers. Each of these mobs has their own behavior, such as what time of day they spawn, if you're able to breed them, how they attack you, how they interact with other mobs, how they interact with what the player is wearing. Again, there's a surprising amount of depth here. Hell, some of the mobs actually only spawn in certain biomes to give them even more of a distinction. You have the polar bears around the glaciers, the frogs in the swamps, the dolphins in the oceans, and even some recolors of zombies and skeletons for the desert and Arctic biomes respectively. Those are the primary mechanics that I think pretty much everyone who's played this game will go through at some point. But remember earlier when I said that each Minecraft experience was going to be at least a little bit different from the last? Well, I want to quickly run you guys through my playthroughs in both solo and on a server with a rotating group of people, because I think these two very different ways to play the same game and the combination of both of these playthroughs were the thing that really made me appreciate Minecraft in a way that no other game ever did. I'll go over some of the more specific mechanics and experiences that I came across throughout these next few summaries to give you guys an idea of some of the things that you guys might encounter. So, starting with my solo playthrough, I spawned in on a desert-like area and quickly scrambled for materials. When nightfall came, I felt a sense of unease as I heard all of these hostile creatures on the outside of my shabby dirt hut. This really reminded me of playing through a survival horror game, as when I tried to travel outside during the night, I was all but guaranteed to get my shit rocked. Not only were the enemies everywhere, combat was also a little on the janky side, making it kind of unreliable. The desert biome I was in didn't have a whole lot of resources to make a base or eat food, so I had to scavenge around to find resources. Thankfully, I was right next to a huge jungle that could provide me with the wood that I needed, and I was near a river that had plenty of fish, and even a watermelon patch for me to do some gardening. I made my first little house, and while it was basic, it was better than being in a hole. I then upgraded my wooden tools to stone, and then eventually iron. I also found some copper too, which I collected a lot of, only to never really find a use for it. Yeah, I know, copper will have some more relevance in later updates, but for now it's mostly a useless resource. This is when I started doing some expeditions into some caves down below. Then I got my shit rocked and lost everything in my inventory. Thankfully, I left a trail of torches that I was able to guide myself back, and I could recover everything that I had lost. The cave spelunking eventually led me to finding diamonds, and I was determined to get these babies back home so I could start getting diamond gear. As I continued exploring, I found a half-finished nether portal that gave me a helmet that has respiration so I could explore underwater more. I learned about the value of buckets in order to make waterways to quickly get into and out of chasms, and I even explored some other biomes by making a boat to tread around the coast. I got lost. A lot. But more often than not, I was able to find my way back by remembering landmarks. I started leaving block towers into the sky to mark points of interest. Eventually I had enough diamonds to make a pickaxe, and because of my extensive knowledge of Minecraft parody songs, I knew I could mine obsidian now. Around this time is actually when I decided to expand my base. Given I had a surplus of sand available, I decided to make an all-glass base. Now I've played a number of survival games before, like Terraria, Valheim, and Grounded, but I was always more of the hunter-gatherer type of person, rather than a builder. I typically played with other people who were far more into the base building aspect than myself, so I never had to worry about that too much. Well, Minecraft changed that. I sat down for about 4 hours to plan out my base, I got to work, and bam, now we're talking. I decided to make an enchanting table to make my gear a little bit better. Finally, I had a use for all that experience that I kept gaining and losing. I didn't know the best way to enchant stuff at the time, but it was definitely an upgrade over standard gear. This is where I decided to travel into the nether. I assembled my nether portal, traveled to the nether, and was immediately immersed into the hellscape that I saw. I knew I needed to farm endermen for their pearls and find something called blazes to make blaze rods. Thankfully, the locals in the nether didn't really seem to mind me since I was wearing a golden helmet at the time, and I was even able to trade them some gold for a few pearls. I farmed out some endermen, died a few too many times because just looking at these motherfuckers is enough to piss them off, and eventually I had a little over 20 pearls. Then it just came to finding the blazes in Nether Fort. I looked, and looked, and looked, and looked for several hours, but I could not for the life of me find a nether fort. During this process, I fell into a lava pit and lost all my gear, which really infuriated me. So after getting a new set of gear, I continued looking until I found this large structure. Surely this must be a fort. Nope, this is another bastion filled with piglins that don't give a shit I was wearing gold, and they killed me on sight. This is officially where I said fuck the nether and used the locate command to point me in the right direction. Look, I really tried to go through the game without doing that, but after not finding anything for several hours, I gave that up and just wanted to move on. I found the nether fort, fought the blazes, which was a bit of a pain in the ass, and got the materials I needed to create some eyes of Ender. This is when I started following the eyes by throwing them in the air and following them, eventually leading to a portal to the end, where I fought the Ender Dragon, died a few times, but eventually came out victorious. I have to say that the fight with the Ender Dragon was especially tough considering I didn't bring a bow or arrows, no potions, I was in diamond gear, and I only had one enchantment on my diamond stuff. But as I read through the end poem, I reminisced on my journey, and I had a really good time. Little did I know, I didn't even experience close to everything that Minecraft had to offer, because afterwards I played on a server with a bunch of my friends, and what a total change of pace that was. We scaled up the difficulty this time from normal to hard since we had a larger number of people, which meant cave spelunking was incredibly dangerous and I got my ass kicked. A lot. Thankfully, my friends would come to escort me to grab my stuff on a number of occasions, in between them making far more functional structures than I ever could imagine. Auto smelters, inventory rooms organized by resource, corrals for all the animals, a convenient mine shaft in town. These guys had everything figured out for our bare essentials. This is also where I started to dabble in a bunch of some of the other systems that Minecraft had to offer. I met some villagers and started trading emeralds for harder to find resources. I kidnapped some of their cats to keep around town to scare off the creepers. Though later on we did experience a raid, and let's just say that did not go well at all. I started learning about the redstone mechanics, which can essentially make some logic-based circuit-like contraptions that, good God, I feel like I have barely scratched the surface on. It also helped me build my first farm, a contraption that has a bunch of chickens sit in a box that lay eggs that, when they hatch and grow up, are instantly burned alive by lava, giving me an unlimited source of cooked chicken and feathers. There are no ethical farms in Minecraft. We actually had a couple of other farms set up in our town for iron, wheat, carrots, wood, a skeleton farm for XP, pretty much everything you can think of. The real bitch was getting the Blaze farm up and running though. Jesus Christ, trying to build this thing in survival mode felt like we were playing fucking Doom. Like seriously, try building a giant fish tank when all this shit is going on. Once it was done though, man, what an awesome source of XP and blaze rods it was. I personally spent a few hours of my playtime here alone AFKing and just gaining XP. Side note, while I do think Minecraft farms are super beneficial, I won't lie and say I don't necessarily like them. I feel like they typically rely a little bit too much on meta knowledge of the game that people usually get from finding a guide on YouTube, which isn't exactly a creative solution to getting more resources. Not shit-talking anyone who likes using farms, I'm still probably going to use them in the future myself, but I do think they pigeonhole creativity a little bit. Exploring the nether this time actually wasn't that bad, and it made me appreciate the area a lot more. We found a fortress right away, and I even accidentally dug into one later on that was super close to our portal, which eventually became our blaze farm spot. I decided to farm out some netherite, which I initially wasn't a fan of how hard it was to get, but after seeing the new depth that it gave the crafting system, I actually thought it was a pretty good change. I also grinded out a ton of enchantment books and maxed the absolute shit out of my gear, mending and breaking on all my gear to make it indestructible, protection to make me indestructible, and a pickaxe that did this. Much better than using beds in the nether for mining, let me tell you. All the while, it was awesome coming back to see what the rest of the people in my group were doing. Gabe was making minecart tracks for easy access to other areas, Lee was breeding the villagers to get better trade offers, yes I said she bred them, moving on, and Steven built, well, he was the owner of the server, so we couldn't stop him. But seriously, playing this game with friends was an awesome way to go. We killed the Wither boss together, traveled to the Deep Dark to get clapped by the Warden. It was all fun stuff. Before we decided to head and kill the Ender Dragon, I dabbled a little bit into the potion making, which I enjoyed setting up, but definitely think it was the weakest system between enchanting and crafting. Personally, I'd kind of like to see a system that has you combine multiple ingredients to make potions with multiple effects, rather than tossing glowstone and redstone on everything. This encounter with the Ender Dragon was much faster, with us being fully decked out in netherite gear, enchanted bows, and enough food and potions to feed an army. We murked this big fucker, and then I realized I never actually explored the end outside of killing the dragon. So we set out, and it was honestly pretty boring. Yeah, outside of getting to the end cities and getting an elytra, which is a legitimately awesome final award giving the players the ability to glide, the end is pretty lame. It's just nothing but the same islands with the Endermen as far as the eye can see. I'd really like to see this area get an update in the future to expand its biomes, maybe add some more resources and make this area actually worth returning to, maybe something in a similar scope to another update from a few years ago. The multiplayer server is something that is still ongoing for us and has been a massive time sink and a great way to procrastinate doing anything else more important. We built a beacon to get some passive buffs that also stretches my POV and makes my footage look like shit. We have a bunch of pathways through the nether dedicated to quick travel to certain points of interest like the mansion I found in the woods. And then we have Johio. It exists. So as you can see, those playthroughs, I really did kind of do essentially the same thing. I mean, you'd probably be disgusted with how much B-roll footage I have of just me digging in a straight line. But regardless of that, between the two playthroughs, the experiences were just so vastly different. Survival mode is something I see myself coming back to very frequently, probably returning every time a new major update hits. I don't know if I'll do too many more solo worlds unless something really sparks me to go back, but multiplayer servers are always something I'll be down for in the future. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, there's a lot more to this game than just survival. The other side of the coin when it comes to the standard Minecraft package is creative. Now, as the name implies, you can pretty much do everything that you can in survival, but with unlimited resource and without the fear of dying. You can fly as high as you want to and can basically create whatever you want. It's a fun mode for sure and has been absolutely massive for this game. I mean, think about how many people have built iconic locations like Hogwarts or King's Landing, all from Minecraft blocks. That was probably all done in creative mode. Me personally, I'm just happy to make a few shitposty things here and there on my server and call it good. I don't necessarily have the time or attention span to make things like this, but if you do, more power to you. I love seeing all the work people put into these projects, even more so for the people that manage to do these mega builds inside of survival or God help you hardcore. And what ways they have to share those projects with others, because when it comes to Minecraft, user-generated content is where the real mileage starts to begin. There's a ton, and I mean a ton of mods available for the Java edition, and tons of things available on the storefront on the Bedrock edition. On the Java side of things, you have things like Optifine that can reduce your computer's resource usage and easily install shader packs to make the game look however you want, and there are mods for pretty much anything you could think about. Improving the vanilla experience, adding in new forms of transportation, adding in new mechanics, going to new biomes like different planets or dimensions, adding things like guns, tanks, generators, nuclear reactors. You could have a full-on Pokemon-like mode in this game, and probably make a better open-world Pokemon game than Game Freak can. On the Bedrock side of things, your choices are a little bit more limited, but I still found a ton of free custom maps on the storefront that offered mini games to play, like doing parkour challenges, battle royale modes, role-playing servers, PvP arenas. Hell, I found an official collaboration with D&D that, being a massive fan, I gave a shot, and while it's no Baldur's Gate 3, there's enough here that I think it's still worth playing. Plus, seeing a beholder all Minecraftified is so fucking cute. Just look at this guy. They even have a crossover with MLB because, I mean, here you go. I played around in a few of these, but since most of the people I typically play with stick to Java, this didn't last super long. A couple of ray tracing worlds I checked out really opened my eyes to see how amazing this game could look within its framework. Like, this shit is insane. Minecraft is virtually limitless. There is no end to the amount of content there is to explore in this game, from having an already complete experience available now to the massive shadow cast by the mod scene. If you were going to pick any one game to play for the rest of your life, I think Minecraft has a very good argument for it to be in your consideration. You're about to hear something that most YouTubers have never said in their life. I was wrong. Minecraft is an awesome experience. Nearly everything I was worried about subsided. Everything that I thought I was going to hate wasn't a big deal, and everything that I didn't understand, I grew to love once I did. Is Minecraft perfect? No, but most of the things I don't like are very nitpicky. Yeah, there are some resources that are essentially useless. Some biomes aren't as fleshed out as I'd like them to be, and the end kinda sucks. But those really don't account for the amount of fun that I've had with this game, and even how it pushed me out of my comfort zone to experience it in a different way. Minecraft gets a very high recommendation from me. What an absolutely awesome time I had with this. And now that I'm done with this video, I can't wait to go back and play some more. But that's all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you for watching. What was your favorite memory of Minecraft? Please be sure to leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. And hey, if you enjoyed today's video, maybe consider giving it a like and subscribing. Thank you guys again, and I'll catch you in the next video.